You ever notice how easy it is to just slap a new meeting on the calendar and how nearly impossible it is to get one off the calendar? I mean, we treat meetings like free candy at Halloween, but the truth is, they are not free. They're actually one of the most expensive things your organization does. Just think about it. Every time you sit in a room with your people or in a Zoom room with your team, that's energy, that's people's salaries, that's people's focus, and it's all pooled together. And some studies say that up to 15% of a company's personnel budget is spent on meetings. And yet we rarely, if ever, stop to ask if that time was well spent. So no wonder when I ask people what wastes the most time at work, the answer is almost always meetings. So here's the question I want us to wrestle with today. If meetings cost us this much, why don't we steward them with the same care that we give to budgets or strategy or events or the relationships with our client? And what would change if meetings actually worked for us instead of against us? And how in the world do we make those changes? What changes can we even make this week? So let's get into that. I love my extended family, but it's never good when you start like that. But no, for real, I love my extended family, but one of our biggest struggles when we're together is deciding what to do. We're on a big vacation. It might be what excursion are we going to do, or what restaurant are we going to go to, or just on a normal night, it could be what game are we going to play, or what movie are we going to watch. And here's the problem. So you've got people with very strong opinions, people with no opinions, people who just want someone else to make the call, and then people who want a full discussion before deciding. And so what happens is we get stuck in what I call decision prison. So we spend so much time trying to figure out what we're doing that we don't actually do anything. Have you ever experienced that? It's those moments when what we really need isn't to debate over pizza versus tacos or something on Netflix or something on Apple TV. We just need to step back and ask, how are we going to decide? Maybe we would decide that it's one person's turn each day to make the choice, or we decide we're going to split up and do our own thing on the vacation for a day. But we need a plan for the decision making before we get there. And meetings, they're the exact same way. We jump straight into putting something on the calendar, pile in whoever we think should be there, and then we sit around and we wonder why it feels clunky, why it wasn't productive. So sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is pause and have a meeting about our meetings. And I know you're probably wondering, why in the world am I suggesting a meeting about a meeting when I've already talked about the amount of time and money we waste on meetings? But it is really critical. So here's what I want to suggest. Get your core team together. So the people that are really in the majority of your meetings. And I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about one-on-one meetings. That's not what we're getting into today. I'm talking about the group meetings, right? Like those meetings that are typically 4 to 10 people in the meeting. So you're going to gather your core people and make some decisions about your meetings. And to help you do that, you're going to answer 4 questions together. The first question is, which meetings are truly necessary? And I get it. The different people might have different opinions about what meetings are truly necessary. So I'm going to suggest that you consider whether your currently scheduled meetings fall into one of the 4 types that are really worth your time. So the first is the daily check-in. And this is your quick tactical huddle. This isn't an all-staff thing. This is like a 5-minute tops. And they call it a stand-up sometimes because if you stand up, then you're going to keep it short. You're not going to sit down and get into things. So you're just getting on the same page with the simple stuff. What's everyone working on today? Any little updates? Anything we need to coordinate? Okay, so that's the first meeting. The second is the weekly tactical meeting. And this is your standard, regularly scheduled staff meeting. And the focus in these meetings is connection and progress and goals for that week, okay? It's about clearing the roadblocks that are coming up in the next week, aligning priorities, making sure everyone knows what's happening with the work and what's happening with each other. And this meeting, your weekly tactical staff meeting, is critical for maintaining that strong workplace culture that you really want. So whatever you do, as tempting as it is, never cancel your regularly scheduled weekly meeting. The third kind of meeting is the strategic ad hoc meeting. And so these are the big, hairy topic meetings. And what we usually do is we take those big, hairy topics and we try to cram them into our weekly staff meetings. And it makes them super long and often not applicable to everyone. So these ad hoc meetings are a small, specific group of people. This is scheduled on a needs basis. And the focus is brainstorming, it's problem solving, it's tackling that issue or that specific task at hand. And finally, the quarterly offsites. This is when you get out of the office, right? You take your leadership or your whole staff and you get out. And the point is to step back and to look long term. You're thinking, what are our big goals? How's the company doing? What's happening in our market, in our industry? And these are the conversations that don't happen in the weekly meeting, but are absolutely essential in staying aligned and staying strategic. So before you throw a meeting on the calendar, you're going to ask yourself, which of these 4 types is it? And as you evaluate the meetings that you already have, if it doesn't fit into one of those categories, maybe it doesn't need to be a meeting at all. And that is totally okay. The goal is to make meetings purposeful and not just something that eats up everyone's time. So the second question you need to ask in your meeting about meetings after which meetings are truly necessary is, who needs to be there? And if you can answer the first question and categorize your meetings, then this gets a lot easier to decide who absolutely needs to be there. Which then leads you to the third question, moving right along, which is, how do we keep everyone else who's not there in the loop without having to drag them into the meeting? Now, look, unless it's a meeting with information that isn't appropriate to share with everyone, I don't think, and this is just my personal opinion, you might disagree, but I don't think that these group meetings should be exclusive. So by that, I mean, if people want to come, if they want to provide support or collaboration, that's fine. Let them come. You just need to decide who absolutely has to be there, like it's required for their job. So now that you've looked at the meetings that you have, categorize them, sent a bunch of meetings to the meeting landfill, never to be seen again, and decided who needs to be at the meetings that you have and how you'll communicate to those who don't have to be there, there's just one more step in your meeting about meetings. This isn't confusing at all, right? Is it? Okay. The last question is, how are we getting feedback on our meetings? And the worst, you've probably been there, is when someone is leading a meeting and they think it went great and everyone else thinks it was a waste of time. So we have to have a way of collecting feedback about our meeting times. So if you just do that, right, have your meeting and work through those questions, your team will be so grateful for it. And you will have already made great progress towards redeeming that time and stewarding your team's time better. And that's a perfect segue, go me, into what I want to talk about next, which is the leader's posture in meetings. I'm sitting up much taller after I say the word posture. As the leader, as the person running the meetings, you want a posture of care that's focused on stewardship. You have the responsibility to steward your people's most valuable asset, their time and attention. And it's sad, but it's just the truth. We are really aware of not wasting time when it comes to a valuable client or a customer, but rarely for our peers. So don't fill time just to fill time, but instead see every meeting as an act of stewardship. And I'm going to have some practical tips for this a little bit later in the episode. Now, there are a million ways we could do meetings, a million. I would never suggest there's just one way, but I will say that there are ways you can initiate some creative practices to have way better meetings. And these are just some of my ideas, and they might not apply to every meeting, but I want you to just try one this week in a meeting that you'll be leading. So I have 4 creative practices, and no, none of them involve cheesy icebreakers. You're welcome. The first practice is to start your weekly staff meeting with a bang. What do I mean? Well, I have an acronym, BANG, B-A-N-G, for how you should kick off your meetings. And I have it in a PDF guide so you can use it as a template. Just go to heycaralist.com/kickoff and download it today, or go ahead and grab the link in the show notes. But BANG stands for bravos, alignments, numbers, and glue. And I'm not going to go into depth here because you can just grab the guide, but I'll give you a quick flyby. So bravos are how we recognize the good work and the efforts of individual team members. Alignments is when we point out how the work we have seen, specifically like in the past week, aligns with our mission and our values and our goals. The numbers is a chance to share any metrics that are important for everyone to be tracking. And glue, yes, glue, is the opportunity for people to share something in their world that the team could celebrate, support, or just simply be aware of. So it just keeps us together in community. So the guide gives scripts and tips for how to do that kickoff, but it should not take you more than 10 minutes. And it achieves so much in terms of community and positive, strong workplace culture. And it also is super productive. So the second creative practice I want to recommend is this: rethink the agenda. What if instead of writing your agenda as a list of topics you want to cover, you framed it as a list of questions that need to be answered? So if your prep for the meeting is really about clarifying what questions need answers, it does three things. It makes clear why the meeting is even happening. It helps you know exactly who needs to be there, right? The people with the answers. And it gives you a built-in way to measure success. Did the team answer the questions? And friend, if you can't think of any questions that need answering, maybe you don't need to have the meeting, or maybe you just keep it short. Do your meeting kickoff because you should always have that weekly touch point for connection. And then you ask your team what questions they need answered. And here's the thing: when questions are on the table, participation is the natural response. We are wired to want to answer questions. And there's also something just really respectable about a leader who leads with questions. It says, I don't have all the answers, but together we have the answers. And that's vulnerable, it's transparent, it's curious, and honestly, it's just good leadership. So rethink how you frame your agenda. Questions that need answers instead of topics that need discussion. Okay, you good? Sticking with me? Let's move to my third creative practice for better meetings. Create norms. Do not assume them. So much dysfunction in meetings and really in team culture in general comes from unspoken assumptions. So if you want people to show up and participate in a certain way, you can't just hope they're going to figure it out. You have to explicitly state it. And these are just your rules of engagement. Things like we honor people's time. We listen and engage with respect. We don't criticize publicly, but we do surface concerns respectfully, right? We engage in debate and candor. We make space for other people to speak up in a way that makes them feel safe. I think about it kind of like how I reinforce our family norms every single day. There isn't a day that goes by where I'm not reminding my kids, we don't interrupt. We're going to use calm words to ask for something instead of screaming at your brother, or tell her when something has hurt your feelings. Now, obviously, we don't talk to employees like they're children. They're not our children, but the principle is the same. We can't expect the culture we want if we don't consistently affirm or correct the behaviors that we see, especially when it comes to communication. So, in your next meeting, pay attention, be listening, be watching, and then take the time to either instill a new norm or affirm one that you want to see more of. Okay, this last one, so excited to share it with you because it's a new one to me, and I think it is so good and so unique, and I want you to try it so bad and let me know how it goes. Okay, number 4 is use silence as a tool and be blown away by what it produces. So when it comes time for some brainstorming, or when it comes time to answer a question as a group, instead of doing it in real time out loud, do it in real time silently in a shared doc. So I read that groups that do this produce twice as many ideas, and those ideas are often far more creative and far more disruptive. And here's why it works: because everyone can talk, right, at once. And the loud voices in the room, you know who your loud voices are. They have less sway or influence over the conversation. So your introverts or your internal processors, they have more time and space and equal footing. We so often privilege the extroverts and the verbal processors in the meeting. And don't get me wrong, I'm an extroverted verbal processor and I don't hate the opportunity to talk, but that just limits the possibilities, right? If it's only my voice, we are so limited. Another thing I love about this is the norm can be that you are welcome to give comments and thoughts on other people's idea in the doc. And you see, this is happening all at the same time. So imagine what gold could be in a doc like that. Now, obviously, this isn't an exercise for every single meeting, but just try it. Try it and see how it goes. Your team might love it, and you might come out with so much more good material in so much less time. Okay, those were my 4 creative practices for better meetings. Use the meeting kickoff, rethink the agenda with questions, create and state norms, and use silence as a tool. Friend, meetings, they're not going away. And that's okay. But they don't have to be such a time waster. And you don't need to feel the pressure to overhaul every meeting, right? You don't have to feel the pressure to make every meeting just the best thing ever. Just start with one small practice this week and see what happens. And maybe it's just having that meeting about meetings. Maybe it is thinking a little more about your role as a steward of time, or maybe it's just trying one creative practice. So, what are you going to do? I'd love it if you're watching on YouTube for you to just drop a comment. Let me know what you're going to try this week. And if this video was helpful to you, please share it with a leader who could use it. Not only does this help them, but it helps me too. And I really appreciate it. Okay, friend, I am here cheering you on. Do not forget to download that meeting kickoff template, and I'll chat with you next time. Bye.